Welcome into the pit again. I'm Mike. That's Jason. And we're going to do our first review today. Sabaton's 10th album, The
And,
War to End All Wars.
and one of the reasons we chose this album is A, because we needed to start with some album and it was coming out at a great time, but B, we both like Sabaton. So we don't have to start putting on an album that there's a chance we're going to trash right from the beginning. It's nice to give a band a fighting chance.
Was that an on purpose pun?
No, I didn't
Fighting
realize
chance?
Oh, God, I didn't realize you did that.
That was good. That was good.
God.
All right, now that we've started with the puns. So just a quick bio for anyone that doesn't really know Sabaton. Like I said, this is their 10th album, so they've been around. They formed in 1999, actually, which is interesting. I didn't actually know that until I looked it up. They're Swedish.
About 10 years ago, so yeah, I had no clue they were around that long.
Yeah, so they didn't release their first record till 2005, which was actually not the first record they recorded. They recorded Metalizer first, and it wasn't released till their third album,
which is sad because that's one of my favorite songs they've made ever.
And that's really Metalizer's really their only album that doesn't focus on war. They've made that conscious decision after.
They did a lot of singing about actual just heavy metal, which I loved.
And I liked the content. I'm a history guy, and specifically I like learning about wars. So that's the thing that appeals to me. And the only other interesting thing about them to me is that in 2012, they had a major split of the band. So 3 members left. Both guitar players and the drummer left the band and formed a very similar band called Civil War, who focused on more American history, but very similar. It's interesting. So the singer and bass player remained. They recruited new guys and kept going. And I feel like they kind of came to power after that. I think that switch is really what the guy had never heard of them before that. A friend of mine introduced me to them around that time, probably 2013.
That's why I was guessing about 10 years for myself, because that was when I started. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not my favorite band, but they're fun. So it's a good time.
The one weird thing that I found about this is it's actually almost like a rock opera with an actual beginning, starting, and an end. And it is the second album they did about World War I specifically, though, which is what I found kind of odd.
Well, okay, I can explain that for you. They had so many stories they wanted to tell. It was the last album, The Great War, in 2019. They had so many stories about World War I that they wanted to tell, and that people came out of the woodwork to tell them, that they were like, we have enough for another album of these really interesting and amazing stories. And so they were just like, yeah, let's do it. So that's where that came from. It's interesting to do like an album.
Here's one tiny problem. On their website, they had a song called Sarajevo starting the whole album. And my playlist on Prime, it starts with Stormtrooper and there's no Sarajevo. So I've never actually heard that one song. I've heard the rest now dozens since we started this a week ago.
I've not heard that either.
Okay, yeah, there's a song called Sarajevo that's apparently attached to this album that starts it all. I thought Stormtrooper was a great beginning to the album.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay,
so
well, we can
so anyone
go check it out for yourself.
Yeah, because it's the one thing we're both going to be missing, but that's more on Sabaton than us. So
right.
But the way I also meant as where I was going is that near the end of the album, they have a nice Christmas song, which actually adds us another metal Christmas song. So that's pretty cool. And then the ending song really is like a good ending to an album, especially one that seems to be not telling a story, but more or less interconnected all the way through.
Yeah. And I looking into each song is interesting because they're all like a different story they're telling, which is really cool. So I like content from Sabaton. I always have. You could learn something, which is always good.
Well, and I keep telling you, listen to more Maiden, because that's all they do.
Well, that brings me to my point on this band, and I feel like, I don't know if you agree, but I feel like they're very Maiden with keyboards.
A little heavier,
and kind of how I feel.
No, a little heavier and a completely different voice, but for the most part, there's a lot of similarities. Yeah,
but like in the completely different voice. He's still very like sing-songy, kind of.
Yeah,
It's
he
like
just has that
goes up and
weird Germanic Swedish growl added to it.
yeah,
I don't think
which
Bruce can do that, but I don't think he can do what Bruce does. So it's a good thing they do their own stuff.
but I think like from a musical perspective, that's what it kind of reminds me of. So
A more modern day made it.
yeah, kind of.
So
They have that gallopiness to them.
now we're gonna go into a couple of things we liked about the album. I'm gonna start, like I said, the Stormtroopers was a really great way to go into it. The one thing I noticed about this album is the first time I listened to it, it was like, oh, this isn't bad. Sadly, after listening to it so many times, yeah, I know, I just started Race to the Sea, poor thing. I started singing along. It became catchy as I listened to it over and over, and then I just found myself singing along to almost most of the album. So I'll give him kudos. Like, it went from an album I
I
didn't think I was
mean,
even gonna like to, and I'm just starting to sing.
it's definitely up your alley for the sing-alongness. They definitely
Yeah.
have that with all their records.
And that helps with me. Well, truthfully, the last album wasn't quite as sing-alongy, and I was expecting the same thing from this one. But then again, now I'm thinking maybe I want to go listen to the last album about a dozen times, and I bet I'll start singing along with that too. So
I mean, you can do it for anything, but
I think
yeah, it's very
Sabaton,
singing music.
but I think it's more of an acquired taste for the sing-along.
Yeah,
Just judging by what happened, since yeah, the first time I listened to it, it didn't really hit me as much. Hell, I was going to give it 3 stars. I know we haven't started doing our 3 demon heads, but I'm glad I listened to it a bunch more times.
and here's my issue, and I don't know if others agree, but I don't really notice a difference between songs on this album or even their other albums. They all sound so similar.
It did.
And for me, it kind of takes me out of it. It just feels like one long song from a like sound perspective. There's not a lot of variation, which is
No,
my only thing
the
that I don't
choruses
like.
is the only reason I realized it in a different song. The choruses are different. And they did try a couple of experimentations. There's like there's one they added a little electronics to the beginning of a song, and you know,
But to say that there's any surprises on this album would be no.
no,
I don't think they're trying. They're not. They're in their lane, and they're really not looking to change lanes. They might go towards that lane a little teeny tiny bit, but they
well,
always stay in that
was
lane.
there any songs that stood out for you?
I liked a few. I always like their song titles. They're always
Well,
good.
yeah.
Always good. The ones that stood out for me that I liked, the Unkillable Soldier, Hellfighters, and I think my favorite song on the record is Lady in the Dark.
Oh wow, I was gonna just finish about the saying that we have seemed to be going as usual in different tastes, but Lady of the Dark definitely hit my top 3.
Okay.
And obviously, like I said, the Christmas one, because getting another Christmas metal song is always bonus.
That I like that song too, yeah. But I could say I liked all the songs because they're so similar.
Oh yeah. Now the one
But
that got me was the ripoff of Led Zeppelin with Stairway to Heaven. But that's okay. Led Zeppelin ripped off every blues band they ever heard, so it doesn't really matter to me. But it's funny that by the time I've heard it a few times, it was the first song to pop into my head as I was just singing, and all of a sudden I'm just singing that song without even listening to it. And I'm like, oh man, that's the first song to get. And I'm pretty sure it's because they used the word Stairway to Heaven, and that stuck with me.
oh, the Soldier of Heaven, that one.
Soldier of Heaven, but they
Yeah.
actually the chorus starts with on
That's
fire
a
and goes to Stairway to Heaven. So
that's an interesting story that I didn't know. Like I'm a war buff, and I didn't know that there's still soldiers lost and buried in the mountains.
no, come on. I'm sure every mountain has soldiers lost and buried on them somewhere.
Well, they got to go up there to fight. So, like, yeah, I didn't know that specific story. So that's interesting.
No, I didn't know that one either. It just
Oh.
wasn't much of a shocker to me.
Yeah.
So I guess
But
what do you think overall? Let's hear some demon heads there, buddy.
Okay. My overall rating out of 5, my Demon Head rating is going to be 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5, which was actually my first instinct, was to give it to 3 demon heads. But now that I'm singing along with every song, it gets a bonus demon head just from being so sing alongable.
All the way up to 4, not a 3.5.
I
Four?
thought
You're
of
going
that,
4.
but I I keep listening to the album over and over again.
I
That's
mean, I'm not
something.
arguing with,
I don't generally
your
listen to
opinion.
albums over and over again unless they, are called Testament, Overkill, or Megadeth. So
I tend to listen to things like I let it sit and settle, like because I want it to grow on me. So when it's new, I'll listen to it a bunch of times. Um, this one, it grew on me a little, but it grew on me like one long song.
and also it might go closer to three. I'd understand if you're comparing it to their other albums. They have had probably realistic fours, but you're the one that told me to listen to this over and over again. So it's kind of your fault.
I made you do it.
You made me do it.
Well, that's how you kind of have to get into a record.
So
I will also say I like Sabaton's artwork. I always have.
yeah, the cover.
They're all very cool. That sort of realistic painting style, I like it.
I am
And
I am disappointed by one main fact that I know it's a theme album, but they could always sing an extra song just about heavy metal and not about war. They should always throw one of those into the
I
mix
mean,
in
they're
every album they ever have.
9 albums into not doing that, so
I know they make me so angry.
it's gonna
And
happen.
just makes me so angry.
And I like their logo. I think it's pretty cool. It has the little like armor thing on the S.
Yeah,
I like it. And another little tidbit of what a Sabaton is. Do you know?
that's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's the foot armor of a like a suit of armor.
Which would make even more sense to that symbol you were talking about on the S.
Yeah.
That thing on the S is pretty much, I'm guessing, a Sabaton then.
I don't know if specifically it is because
Look, lie to me. Don't tell me
the-
the truth. Just say yes. It sounds so much better.
Yes, it's very
There
true.
we
Except
go.
not because it's actually specifically not the coolest piece of armor, but it's the foot armor, but it's a cool name.
No,
So-
I didn't. I had no clue about that whatsoever. A million games of Dungeons and Dragons, knowing the armor inside out. I still didn't know that one, but that's okay.
So my only last question is a genre question. Is this power metal? I'm asking the power metal expert.
I think because of the route of war they took, and basically his voice as well, are the only two reasons I'm hesitating calling them in general power metal. In fact, Metalizer might be the only thing I consider they ever made as power metal. But
Because
also,
they get put in that category.
I'd
And
almost
I never really thought
I'd
that
almost
was
put
right.
them in that new wave of heavy metal that came in the early 80s. If I had to put them anywhere, I'd put them with Judas Priest and Maiden. Motorhead. I could see them all working well together. Maybe,
yeah, they have that new album sound. So
well, of course,
That's
we're
interesting.
talking ancient bands versus the newer bands, but there's
Yeah.
always going to be some differences. So
yeah, I think for me, power metal has to have that fantasy element. I don't think they have that. So content wise, it doesn't match up. But they do often get put in that category with Dragon Force and things that are
power metal with an old school new wave twist.
I guess.
I don't know. I'm just trying to somehow work it into that genre, and even I'm coming up about this.
Not that it matters.
They
but I was
came
just
out at the
wondering
same
your
time
thoughts.
as they came out as at the same time as a lot of those bands from that part of the world. Well, but that part of the world, we're North American, so everywhere else is that part of the world.
Anywhere that's not here.
What do we
same
know?
place.
We call football that thing with the brown ball you throw. So yeah, it doesn't really matter what you say.
Oh god. I mean, we are centric on where we live as North America.
We're Canadian brainwashed by Americans. Take it up with them.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it.
Unfortunately,
But don't take it up with them. They don't care.
No, they don't care, but at least we don't have to anymore either. Okay, well, I think that's good.
All right.
You got
we
your
liked
3
it.
Demons. I got my 4 demons. You liked it. I'm gonna keep it in my mix for a while. Actually,
You're gonna
so
keep
obviously.
singing it. I don't often listen to Sabaton, but occasionally I pop it on because it's fun.
Well, Metalizer album's always been in my mix. Probably will never leave my mix. And there's a couple extra tunes from a few other albums. By the way, it's not all their albums. They do occasionally add a song or two that has to do with metal. I'd have to look it up to remember which ones, but yeah, no, it's not quite that bad. They throw me a bone every once in a while.
And to just make sure we mention Metallica, their cover of For Whom the Bell Tolls is quite good.
Of course, because everyone's better than Metallica now. A discussion for another day, and I'm joking. Don't kill me.
It's not a discussion.
That's why I said I'm joking. Don't kill me.
I would never do such a thing.
Okay, well, we're sneaking this one out to get the review out as quick as possible. We also have another one for the misconceptions of metal coming up after this, which was actually recorded before this, but it's all good.
Much like Sabaton's first album.
See, everything works out well.
All right. Well, that's it for us. Into the Pit. Sabaton's The War to End All Wars.
They've been reviewed. Later, man.